Thing. So
Right.
very good. So last week we discussed a few things. I want to just summarize it in short, and that is that last week we discussed the three stages which come into being of the willpower, and the willpower, the intention, the calculation of, or the meditation, the contemplation of how do we bring it into fruition, into practicality. And all this is done still in the mind, which later on we're going to put it into the different spheres. And later on, we discuss also the execution. With that, we spoke last week about the great difference between a human being created in the image of God and God himself. Meaning that when we think of something and I give somebody else the order or the instruction to do it, it will be a different body, different time, different stage for the execution. However, watching myself when I think and I will something into being and I have the intention, I really can speak it. I can move my hand or my foot. And this will allow me to understand how can God have thought of something, willed it into being, and it's there. Because I, who has created the image of God and only a figment of imagination, God's mind, and do it very vividly and very, very easily just with myself. And we spoke about it, that God has got really two wills which are revealed to us. One is explicit, which is the limited will that we will learn to see how it is through the 10 sefirot, with our limited capacity. So I can understand the difference between chesed and gvura, between kindness and judgment, and others, of course. And the other side is the unlimited, the infinite will of God, which is the whole totality of the intention of God, which is called in Kabbalah, Rava de Ravim, or the will of all wills. And this, we don't have an inkling, how does it look like? We don't understand the totality of God, and we're not supposed to. Very much like a child, a toddler of 3-4 years old, cannot understand his parents, even if he's willing to, because they've got a different jargon, different language, different education. And from our children, we can understand how can God be completely over and above our level, our understanding, our spirituality, our dimensions, that we can never fathom, understand, or grasp. And that is okay. That is okay. And by doing that, we understand the infinity, the transcendence of God above us, and nevertheless the compassion and love in which to create us in his image. And once we are created, and even the soul is created, as the first tefillah of the day, first prayer of the day says, Elokai, my God, neshama shnatata bi tohorai, the soul you have implanted, given me, is pure, but you have created it. It's not part of God, otherwise we arrive at polytheism. Nevertheless, from that minute onwards, from that onset, we are infinite beings. From that second onwards, we're infinite, because infinite in time, eternal that is. Because from that time onwards, we can never be annulled or negated, only by our own actions, and we will later on and see. Part of us can be nullified, erased by our own actions, very bad actions, bad choices, but the soul can never be erased from a person once it is created, because it's made in God's image. Therefore it's eternal, therefore it's going to be in every one of our reincarnations. And this is our starting point from today, from where we got to last time, plus minus, and I've added a few things now. So moving forward, the first segment for today is called Or Nehara, which means light and enlightenment. And so first we have to understand the language of Kabbalah was made in such a way that we don't have a grasp. If we spoke in spiritual terms that are in higher worlds that we cannot grasp with our 5 senses or even intelligence, we wouldn't be able to actually express it with words, because what words do you use there? This is one of the great deep explanations why Moses was a stutterer, because his understanding was so high, so much higher than our human understanding, that he couldn't bring it down to actual speech. We think the other way around. Oh, shame, the poor guy, he ate some coals at Pharaoh, and therefore he's crippled. That's also true, But the deep in meaning that the Maharal of Prague explained is that it was so way beyond our understanding that he couldn't bring it down into physical, worldly, and wordy expression, not a word and not in PDF form. So the Mekubalim found themselves, the Kabbalists found themselves a language which is called Anaf and Shorsh. We see in this world some physical reality. We call it the branch. We go and we surface our mind and we find above this the true root of things, the true root of things. And therefore, once we do find the true root of things, we understand if in this world, the highest form, spiritual form, we see as light, what we can grasp, and what comes and emanates from it is called enlightenment, right? Therefore, it must be that in the higher worlds, this is our language, our physical language, in which we can actually express it, because we have a limited capacity of defining it or expressing it in any other way. So for the lack of a better explanation and grasping of human intelligence, we call it light and enlightenment. Again, it's nothing to do with God being limited and he's trying to tell us things that we cannot grasp. We grasp it always will be from our human intelligence, as great as it will be limited. So what does it mean? It means as follows. It means that when God wants to reveal his will, his intention to human beings, or to animals for that matter, right? How can he do that? So how do I know what God wants from me? And we have to realize, because most of us, we have passed our 20s by 1 or 2 years or so. So we've been around. We try to go along our careers. We finish elementary school, high school, then we go into university. University maybe is the first time, or yeshiva learning, or seminary, that we try and grasp who am I and what am I going to pursue as a career. Now, my friends, my brother, my sister, whoever it is, my roommate, my partner for life, is pursuing a different career. So who told her or him that they should pursue their career, and why? Why is that? So this is called he'ara. We have an inkling, we have an enlightenment, which is God's light into us, revealing to me, pushing me, nudging me, intuitively, this is you, Gil Tivon, this is who you are. You should go in that way, not in a different way. So if I will go, for example, in functional medicine, I will be bored to death. For somebody else, this is, it makes him thrilled and inspired, and he's full of passion for it. But for me, not. Give me Torah, I'll be passionate all day. Give me things that speak to my soul, I'll be passionate. So how do I know? So we have to realize, first of all, there's a highway. Highway is for everyone. The 10 Commandments, the 613 mitzvot, those that we have to do and those that we negate or not doing. For example, yes, keeping the Shabbat, the Shabbos or the Sabbath, and no to killing, no to stealing, no to lying, no to adultery. All this we know. This everyone is commanded on. Nevertheless, some people are more drawn to some things negative and something positive. I'm not talking about it. How do I know what makes me tick? How do I know what is my specific aspiration? And some people that I know spend a lifetime, even they're quite elderly, and haven't found themselves as yet. What is my mission? What is my calling? Not mission only from the perspective of the service. I have to know who am I? What am I seeking for? So for those of us that it's easy, we say, well, I know the simple question, why are they wasting their life? No, they're not. They're really unsure about themselves. It's not only knowing of themselves, but what is it that really is my calling? And for this, we have to spend time with ourselves and contemplate, to us professionals, that the spiritual mentors, real spiritual mentors, rabbis, etc., that really know to help us along. And when we come to that, we call it Kabbalistically he'ara, or an enlightenment, which means God's light is coming slowly, without our knowledge, into our minds, going down through, in a spiral way, from right to left, through the different kind of spheres, and giving us the inkling, this is me, this is what suits me, this doesn't. This is my partner for life, this isn't. This speaks to my heart, that doesn't. That food speaks to me. I love, that's my best food. That's my best curry. That's my best partner. That's the person I love. That's the looks that I love. That's the taste that I love. Why? Because as we say in Hebrew, al tam vareach, you cannot, there's no right and wrong there. Just listening intuitively to my inner self, listening to God's enlightenment, and finding my way of how to do that. Now, we're going to go into understanding that this enlightenment comes from a source, obviously. So let's say I have a source of light here in the room. I'll show you the source of light in the room, for example. You see that the light that you're seeing now is also this light in my room, like this one right up there. It's some kind of a fluorescence light, normal white light. But you're seeing that you're feeling that there's also some kind of a yellow light, and here it is. There's also somewhere yellow light somewhere in my home office, right, which is out there, and that's the source of light. Yes, we can go backwards and we say that the source of light is somewhere where they make the industrial kind of electricity. That's all right, but from my perspective, my source of light is this white light and this yellow light, and what I'm getting from it, so that I don't have these flashes in my eyes. I'm only enjoying the enlightenment, the waves that come from the source. So the source itself we call light, and the light that we receive from it we call he'ara, which means enlightenment. That's Kabbalistic language. For example, we all know, and if you don't know, I'm telling you, tonight at 12:15 a.m. is going to be 19th of November, and therefore we're going to have a lunar eclipse. Now, the beauty or the uniqueness about this lunar eclipse, which I think by that time I will be sleeping, and I don't know if I want to wake up, but everyone is talking about it, so maybe I will for a minute or so, is going to be the longest one in the last few centuries. Going to start at 12:15 MST, Mountain Standard Time, or Pacific Time, it's the same here, and it's going to last till about 5 o'clock in the morning, which is great. Now, that means that lunar eclipse means that actually the moon is going to be covered by the sun, and therefore the color it's going to have is going to be red. Okay, that means that the source of light of the moon, what is the source of light of the moon? The sun. The source of light for the moon, not the enlightenment, the source of light for the moon is the sun. That source is actually covering its baby, covering its derivative, covering its offspring, the moon. And so the moon is not going to have its own light to light from our perspective, from where we see it. The reason why, by the way, that Kabbalistically the color is red is because different colors mean different things. When it comes to red, we know that it's not good news that we are up in front of some kind of chaos, upheaval in the world, like wars and conflicts. It can be in politics, between big countries, between states. We don't know. There is no address written on the moon saying, I'm going to tell you what it is. But we know it's not good news. But from our perspective, we understand that the moon tonight, which is receiving the light, is not open to be receptive to the light because its actual source is covering it. Imagine, for example, you decided to go to seminary. In that seminary comes a huge, big, famous rabbi, what we call in Hebrew, Gadol Hador, the giant of Jewry. Who is going to even try and conflict with him? This man or this woman dedicated a lifetime of 95 years plus to only Torah and spirituality and purity and kindness and compassion, one of the 36 hidden tzaddikim, righteous generation. We're not going to argue with such a person because their knowledge, his knowledge, is million times greater than us. Like we go into a lecture in MIT with Warren Buffett about MBA, second degree, and we're going to argue with him. We can argue, it will be blue in the face, but we know that he knows so much more because he's in his early 90s. He's been doing it all his life. He's a brilliant guy. He's got all the experience. So from our perspective, he's the source. What we can learn from him, he is giving us an enlightenment from his experience and his knowledge about business. From this rabbi, we get this knowledge. From our perspective, he is the source. From our perspective, we are receiving enlightenment from him. Once that rabbi goes away from the lecture, or he dies away, or we are away from Warren Buffett, And now we become the teachers. Somebody asks, well, what did you learn at MIT? What did you learn out there from Warren Buffett? We're going to become the source of light for the next person down the chain, when we're going to explain to them, even though we are not Warren Buffett's, we are just his students, or this great Rebbe, we're just his students. But from that person's perspective, we become their teachers and therefore the source of light, and they're going to receive an inkling or an enlightenment or inspiration from us. And so it goes on. And understand, tonight till 12:15, we can actually see the moon. Now, when we see the moon, we think the moon is the source of light, but it never is. It never was, it can never be. It will always be only receptive of light of the sun. From our perspective, it lights up the night. Wow, the great moon. Yeah, but honestly, seriously, it always is a servant that received its light, so to say, from our perspective, from the sun. The sun is the real source. The moon will always be receptive and secondary, but from our perspective, we receive the light in the night always from the moon. Seriously, if we go to the sun, it's not the source of light. The sun gets its power from the center of the galaxy, right? The Milky Way. Seriously, that Milky Way is not the source of light. God is the source of light. Can we see him? No, we cannot. But we can understand with our mind that he is. And I just want to tell you a short, funny, nice story that I had once. I was doing astrophysics in South Africa. And one of the professors that told the following story, the person who was an astrophysicist was giving a lecture in the nighttime in the planetarium, which is for astronomers, not for astrophysicists. But nevertheless, he was giving this lecture. And there was a one rich lady over there. It was in England, this lecture. Very rich, sitting with a silver kind of stuff in the first row of the lecture. And she pounded the stuff on the floor. She says, "You talk nonsense, professor." He says, "I beg your pardon." Say, "Yes, you do. What are you telling me about the source of the energy in the center of the galaxies in the Milky Way? We all know that the world is hanging on the shoulders of Hercules. He is the source of energy in the world." So said the old woman. Of course, everyone laughed and scoffed at her. But when this professor went home to his wife at night, he started thinking. He said, well, you know, she said the stupid thing. Everyone knows it isn't because we know something. But what is the source of energy of the Earth? The sun. And the source of the sun is the galaxy. The source of the galaxy is the Milky Way. And who powers the galaxy? And he came in one night to an enlightenment of God. Because it's impossible, he said. Where is this source of incredible, endless energy? That's how he came to find the source. So retracking your way, you come to understand who is the source. So this is Act 1. Now it's open to you. If you want to reflect or say something, please go ahead.
I do want to say something.
Mm.
Could you say very slowly the Hebrew word you're using for enlightenment?
Yes. The Hebrew word for the source is or, Aleph, Vav, Resh, which is light.
That I got.
Or the Hebrew word for enlightenment, I know. The Hebrew word for enlightenment, I'm just saying for other people that later are going to listen, going to put it up in my YouTube. I'm not going to send it, I promise. But in my YouTube, because I wanted them to be here. And unfortunately, that trick didn't work. But what can we do? No, because I love to see the people. I love to see my people. I don't want to speak to darkness, you know, I need enlightenment. So whoever is he gains, and maybe we'll have to, unfortunately, they won't get it. I'll see it on YouTube sometime in the future. So the word for enlightenment in Hebrew is he'ara, which means hey, aleph, resh, and a hey, which means I'm getting an inkling, getting inspired, getting enlightenment, but it always will be derived from a certain source, and I must find what is the source. This is, by the way, Maya, the reason why we are so particular. Where do we learn? Even when I've been to university for 16 years, 16, not 60, 16 years, here and there and here. I always was very particular. And in yeshiva, I was longer than this. Or in Koilot, I was always very particular. Incredibly, but with a needle to make sure I know who are my teachers, because I will later on forget from them, but they will be my source of enlightenment. In whatever I pursue, and I pursue quite a few different kind of subjects in my mind, in my actions, because that's where life took me. but I wanted to know that they are the best, that they are very good, that they are honest, they are straight, because otherwise I drink from a very poisonous well. Otherwise, that source is not a proper source. If I'm not a good source to my kids, I'm a very bad role model. What will they learn? Yeah, it's good to steal, good to kill, good to be corrupted. No, I don't want to teach them that. So I have to be on my best expression as a self for others, for children, for anyone I come into. I have to excel. I can't be mediocre. I can't be poisonous well of water. And I don't want to drink from that. Goes very deeply, this statement. So again, it's called Or and He'ara. Any other questions on that first subject, if you want?
It's not a question, it's a contribution to the subject.
Absolutely.
So in order to have enlightenment, people, a lot of people thinking about 21, 22, or Rosh Hashanah, or Yom Kippur, finding reasoning to be enlightened, which I like to call it being informative or ready to listen for something else. So in order to be enlightened, I need to make room. I need to define and limit myself to make room to the light to shine. Beautiful. If I live in a very undisciplined life, I will not be able to be enlightened because there is no vessel, there's no kli that can hold that enlightenment. We were speaking about, being an example. Being an example require discipline, require awareness, require being able to be consistent and persistent about your actions. Yes. So all of that are the ingredients for us to form into what? Into seeking. So yes. You can't be enlightened if you're not seeking to be enlightened. It's kind of like talking to the wall and asking why you don't
Absolutely.
understand.
Absolutely.
You don't want to listen. So there's few ingredients that I like to call it preparing the vessel. And some people say, well, it took me 15 years to understand. No, you were just getting ready to be enlightened. So
right.
Yeah,
yes.
We have to remember this is a whole gilgul, a whole life of reincarnation for sometimes a minor thing like bringing back a debt from reincarnation, or bringing one child into this world, or getting married, or finally getting married right, or self-love. So if we understand the goal of the journey is the journey, we must develop discipline. We must develop the qualities that will allow us eventually to peel off the klipot, which means the ego and the challenges.
The peels, the shells.
The shells to be enlightened. So it's kind of like a very simple topic. However, it's a lifetime of journey for self-discovery and seeking, to be humble enough to say, well, if I don't think so, but let me understand. Let me see it maybe for different perspective. Maybe I don't believe it. Maybe I don't align with it, but I just want to understand. And for that, some people have a whole lifetime and will not do that. Not because I'm saying it is bad, because it takes time for the soul to surrender to the process.
Absolutely. So this is what's very important, what you're saying, Shiri, which is, I want to say a few things on that, just to complement, not to negate or to conflict. Chas v'sholom, no, seriously, which means as follows. And that is, sometimes people have to come, they have to be brought to the knees, sick, ill, surgeries, whatever, there to say, Chatanu, Hashamnu, Baganu, we want to become a vessel, we want to understand life better. Sometimes, I'm sure you do as well, Shiri, I see it also when I see patients for bereavement. So only when they're broken, questions come. Where was God? Why did they take my husband, my wife? When they're grieving, when they're in trauma, only when they're broken, then the vessel is ready, the kli is ready for that enlightenment, because before they weren't seeking. They weren't seeking. Now, think of the following. If I want to pour water, if I want to pour this water over here, if I have in front of me just a plate, there's nowhere for me to pour, because it's not a vessel made for pouring anything. The minute I'll pour it, it will go over my laptop, and that will be the end of that and the end of me as well. So that's not good. I have to take some kind of a vessel that was prepared for this. So obviously within your question lies, it's not enough that we should be able to just get an enlightenment. If you're not a kli, if you're not a vessel for it, you don't speak the language, if you're not seeking, you didn't prepare yourself for it, it's just an empty shell. There's no way it will come to you. So I was asked one question, say, look, you're saying that you can see with your eyes, the eye is so small. If I cover it with a little bit of dust, I can't see anymore. Nevertheless, my eyes can see all the way through into the universe, hundreds and millions of light years away. Truly, seriously. So you will ask me a question. Somebody asked me in the lecture a few years back, but a cow can see the same and the computer can see the same. No, they can see the same physical fact, but they haven't got a vessel to translate it. When a cow and a computer sees, they see a dot and it is just a dot. When it's, oh, this dot is a huge galaxy. It's Andromeda. It's a sun. My translation, my experience is rich because I have a soul. And my soul is so great, like yours and yours and yours, you can grasp it yourself, the entire physical universe, v'hanefesh lo timol, as it says in Tehillim. Even then, I want even more. I want more. I can do more than the whole universe because my soul is not physical, it's spiritual. When I let it free, when I let it go, and the number of people that are seeking, that are on that path of elevation are very few. Not to say, well, there's a chip on my shoulder. No, they haven't got there, or they're not seeking, or they're not caring. And you can hear it sometimes. Again, I'm not condescending and I'm not scoffing at anyone or criticizing, but you can hear from 1 minute of speaking to somebody where they're holding. Somebody tell you, look, today I went to the spa. You know, how do you like my hair? My nails, you know how much it cost me? You know, the stress. If this is the entire talk and not by the way talk, and that's how people define themselves, that's where they're holding. Not that you should speak about it, but if the only thing that you speak about is that, how can you want to be seeking anything else? Because that's where the person is holding currently, and that can stay there for a whole lifetime. Now, to give you one little anecdote, in the Gemara, in the oral law, there's a little story about what you asked. That is, one of the Amoraim was a generation that wrote the Gemara some 2,000 years back, came to learn by the giant of Jewry, some 100 miles away from his hometown. When he arrived, he presented himself, his name is my rabbi, this and that, I come to learn by you. The rabbi saw in him, because he was a great, real spiritual leader. He saw in him that he came to learn, but he knew that he's going to have big wars with this guy, because he didn't have humility to learn. He came to argue as well, because he's also a very knowledgeable person who dedicated his life to learning Torah. So he said to him, your first entrance, introductory acceptance trial is to tie now my shoelace. He said, excuse me? Say again? Seriously. He said, you tie my shoelace, you go back home. He said, why do you want that? Why? He said, because if you don't tie it, you're not humble. You're not going to be able to learn anything from you. You didn't prepare your vessel. I don't have anything for you, good and bad. I'm sure you're great. But if you come, it's all who you are and full of yourself. How are you going to prepare a vessel of seeking to learn from me anything? You didn't come to learn, you came to argue. I don't need this. Go open your own yeshiva, leave me alone. So the guy went down and tied his shoelace, said, come and sit inside and you'll be my best pupil. Because he had the humility to prepare that vessel and say, I am not able to, when I come to learn, even though I might know much better than him in this respect, but in that respect, I came to learn. Prepare your vessel, otherwise there's no way to get your enlightenment. Reflection, or I'll carry on. 1, 2, and sold. The auction is sold. So we need now to understand the revelation of what is actually God wanting from us. Now there is a sefer, there is a book which is made famous in our day and age, which is called Chovat Halvavot, right? Duties of the Heart by Rabbeinu Bechaya, the Spanish one, who was some 850 years ago. He'll forgive me one day more, one day less, about 800 years back. And he writes on this subject, I'm zooming in, he says as follows in the Hebrew, it was translated, I think maybe even from Arabic to the Hebrew. It says, when you feel netiyas halev, a tendency of your heart, from your heart, to feel at home, to feel satisfied, to feel embracing, feel happy with what you do, you are pursuing a certain kind of career. Say you come home, I made money, I made lots of money, but I don't feel satisfaction. That means that this is not part of your real mission. You are not aligned with your soul. You might be aligned with your pocket, with your bank account, which is great, goes a long way. But 95% of the people in this world go home angry, frustrated, and hate what they do because they don't do it for the right reason. They do it for survival or for their pleasure or for living the luxury life they want, which is fine. But they don't feel satisfied because it's not their calling. You know it when you feel it. It's not a question of a logical left brain. It's a question of the right brain intuition. When you feel that love, when you feel that happiness, when you feel joyful with what you do, then you know that you got this enlightenment from God. Till then, it might be just a fake, a fraud, a prank, whatever it is that you want to call it. Now, introducing the next little topic, big, huge topic, but it's we're gonna put it into limits, as Shirley said, in the limits, and it is the two kinds of reception, two kinds of grasping, of understanding. What does God want from me? What does He want from me in this world? What am I here for? One is through our senses, and one is through our mind. Which one do we think is easier, or which one is more challenging? Well, obviously, the one that we actually reach through our senses is quite easy. And if we don't have a certain sense, we are deprived or very limited in our vessel. For example, Helen Keller, she was born deaf, dumb, and blind. When she describes in the book, how does she feel the sun? How does she describe the sun? She never saw in her life. She was born this way. She never saw. The only way that she felt the sun was with its warmth. So she described the sun as something very warm in the cheeks. That's the best that she can do. She has a terrible blind spot. Seriously, ambiguously and seriously. And we feel very sorry for her. She can never explain a round yellow sun because since her senses don't deliver this experience, her vessel is unable to fathom, to grasp from our perspective, anything like this. I've learned, and I've lived in South Africa for quite a few years, that in mid-Africa, the natives, when you show them pink, they will say red. They say, no, this is pink. They say, no, this is red. Since they don't have in the lexicon, in the language, pink, they will see red. They will see physically red because they have no definition for the pink. The same applies for a child or for any adult. If my profession is an architect, which it isn't, and I come into, or an engineer, which it is, by the way, and I come into a house and say, well, this house wasn't built properly, there's a fault over here, because I see through professional eyes. But for somebody to say, this is the most wonderful house, we don't know what you want from it. So I have an enlightenment because of my profession, which allows me to see with professional lenses the same thing that you see from a completely different perspective. That's why people go to lawyers, to doctors, to any kind of doctors, to any kind of professions, to any kind of people that write magazines, Maya, or newspapers, because you developed special abilities, aura, enlightenment through your profession, and it colors also your chakras and your auras differently because of who you became through your senses. But this is only a grasping, a fathoming through your senses. A different one, I'm very careful and cautious to say higher, lower, you must decide, it's open to discussion. A different perspective, a different grasping of life, fathoming, is through our intelligence. So I can't grasp everything with my mind. I can rely now on the armchair of my chair, even though and I can feel that and it's very, I can put my entire weight on it. It's really there and I can rely on it. I've got lots of trust in my chair for now. But I know with my mind that this chair is an illusion because 99.9% of it is atoms going around so fast that to me, the illusory feeling with my five senses, this is solid ground. I can rely. I can walk out of this room absolutely safe. But seriously, with my mind, I know it's an illusion, which I cannot grasp with my senses. My mind is telling me the truth of the matter, my friend, is 99.999% of it is just empty space. And around it, the few little guys going around, we call them atoms, protons, neutrons, we know all about it, electrons. And they give you the illusion of this reality as we know it. You take food, we go to a restaurant, you prepare to pay quite a lot of money for the taste, for the smell, for the comfort, for the company, and we do. And it's great, and it's the most beautiful, tasty food. And it smells already as it comes to, and we pay, and we do. But later on, and excuse my French, when we facilitate extraction of this food from our body, and if we look at it, we say, my gosh, it didn't what I pay. I'm not going to pay for it anything at all. So what we eat is an illusion of reality, of grasping, of fathoming that we give it with our five senses. Is it true? Absolutely yes, from the perspective of our senses. It's a subjective truth. And when we grasp, we say, this is it. People go to court if they find a cockroach in their food, because it's a real cockroach. But from a mind perspective, the cockroach is energy, the food is energy, and look at the extraction. Hashem Yishmor, what did we pay for? You know, tens of bucks, hundreds of bucks, for what? For what? And then we can't even go because we be constipated, God forbid. So how do we learn about it? When children usually do not have fear. They see mommy lighting Shabbat candles and they go to the flame. They want to feel the flame, or they want to feel the candle. They want to touch it because it's strange, different kind of light. And then for the first time, they put their fingers through the flame if the mommy is not watching. And of course, she always does. I'm saying to all the people that watch it later, not to the people that are here. People that are here always watch. And I know they do. And then, this is hot. This is the first time in their life they experience the concept of hot and the burn. That's the way they're going to learn. They cannot learn by their senses, by you telling them. You telling them, they get a aura, they get an enlightenment through your mind. You are the teacher, the coach of life, their coach, to their minds. However, it didn't go down to the senses. They have to go through it themselves. They have to fall and get hurt. They have to put the fingers. We don't want to facilitate, but to a small degree, we have to give them that experience. Otherwise, they will never know how it feels. So my question to you is, before we carry on, because this is very important, what is higher? What is better? Grasping things from our mind or grasping things through the five senses? What is more real? What is more real? The five senses or the mind? And I gave you a few examples to think about it. And again, there is no right and wrong. Yes, there's Kabbalistic books that say what they say, but what are your thoughts about it? What is the right formula here? Mind, senses, both, either, neither, or. Shiri, okay. I see. Yeah.
Then now we're coming into a different discussion. What is real in this whole illusion world?
From our enlightenment that we get this enlightenment.
Yeah, I understand. Because this topic you can go from all over the place. Yeah. But I will answer it my way, which means one of the things that I learned through going through special education and working with children, it was profound for me because I understood that every soul, starting from a very young age, understand the world, obviously, from where they're holding.
Absolutely.
So, for example, kids with special needs, we call it special needs because we need to have special mindset to understand their needs.
Yes.
We need to give them a certain ingredients for them to grasp what we call normal in this world. So if they're overly sensory overload or emotionally imbalanced or have a challenge understanding and processing information, we need to break it down for them to have understanding. And once they have the understanding,
beautiful,
we can have something we call normalized behavior, where they're not a problem anymore. So
I just want to understand, I don't know anything about it. You are the professional, you're the expert. I want to understand. In that process, how do you transfer that information? Is it through the mind, through you speak to them? Or is it through the senses that you do it, or both, a combination of both?
So it's a combination of both, right? Because if you have a problem stabilizing your neurological system, sometimes by giving an input on the physiological aspect, the neurological system can calm down and then is open to receive different information. Kind of like think about a person with trauma. If somebody is in trauma, he's not open to have a discussion or let me understand the material.
Right.
He is operating from a very acute surviving mechanism and approach. Is not open to receive. So we are not open to receive when our needs are not balanced. If it's physical needs, emotional need, a spiritual need, financial needs, it's always about finding balance to what? To be able to receive more. Because if I'm not able to receive, I can't grow. I can't move forward.
Right.
So if you ask me what's the recipe, there's no one recipe. Each person, it's a kind of asking what's COVID the lesson to the world. I would ask you what COVID did to you. It is destroy your marriage, destroy your health, destroy your mood, destroy your finance, destroy your relationship. What COVID did to you? Because we cannot save the world. Tikkun Olam is starting with us. We need to save ourselves, not save, but to balance ourselves.
Redeem, balance, rectify. Yeah, but that was
the cup is full. When you have a cup that is full, you can give to some. It can spill over. You can share with other people.
So what you're saying is beautiful. Yeah, but my question was. Go ahead.
So you gotta put your well-being before anyone else for you to be able to become a vessel to have this enlightenment or enlightening that you can share with others. So the question is individualized, IEP, right? Individual educational plan. You have to really specify and ask what's your needs, what's your understanding, where are you holding, who you are today, what's your thoughts, what's your feelings, and it's really starting with us being seekers to realize that, to build that awareness, to peel that self out of ourselves, right? And to be aware of it. I hope it answered the question.
Yes, it's a beautiful answer, but I asked something a little bit different. So that's beautiful. So the question was as follows. I listened very intently, and very humbly, and very respectfully. And I love your answer, and it's beautiful. The question was, so you answer, let's say, for example, from your perspective, for special education, for special needs, and it really is very individualistic. You just want to reflect, if I got it right. And I agree with you entirely, and I think to most of us it does relate. The two questions over here. One, what is real? What is real for normal adults? What is the real essential?
Just for one
second. Yeah, but what is my real reality? That's my subjective reality. What is my real reality? Is it what I sense? And the answer will be the same. The answer will be yes. I understand your answer. According to who you are, that should be my right. So some people will be very more, I can't say shallow, but more materialistic, or more involved with the senses, and more external, and therefore the answer will be more tending towards the physical senses. And for some people that are more spiritual or theoretical people, maybe the answer will be more their mind. Just one second. And what is higher, I think that we'll all agree that higher understanding is definitely the mind, because the mind is stripped of the limitations of the vessel.
Well, you asking a question that the answer is very tricky, because if you ask someone, do you ever get upset? Do you ever get upset and he is located in an island hugging trees and singing Kumbaya? The answer was like, no, I never get upset. But if you put him with other people that sit on his nerves and maybe teasing him and trigger him, he'll discover a different reality. So
you mean a normal parent? You mean a normal parent at home?
So And not only parents, sometimes you learn about yourself by your surrounding, who you are and who you are not. And you have to make the bacharta v'bachaim, and you have to choose life. And that choice will involve you growing through life and not just going in your life and existing. So it's a complicated answer. And it's not that complicated when you have the right answers, or you have the right people, or the roadmap that can help you see the light. So
absolutely. Now let's agree. Let's agree on something which is, let's say, objective. That is, I can grasp with my senses, if my reality, I can grasp my reality. Now you can come into my life and you want to teach me, let's say, Kabbalah. Now, most of the concepts we're going to learn in this course of Kabbalah, in this workshop, are going to be very much stripped of anything physical. We're talking about spiritual worlds, about Sphirot, about names of God. For Pete's sake, for God's sake, it's not in our world and it's not tangible. It doesn't have any tangibility. Now, if I'm going to limit my understanding, and this is the way I was trained at home, by tradition, by custom, only by my senses, I will say the course of Rabbi Dr. Gil Tivon is, he speaks nonsense. It doesn't exist. Because I cannot grasp it, therefore it doesn't exist.
No, you're just limited.
I know that the guy is limited, but they will say...
No, I mean for the story,
Yeah, no, I understand. What I want to get is one point saying that we will always understand that what the mind can grasp is much higher and closer to the real reality than the sense. For example, the light. If I say, if a toddler comes into this office and say, well, I see two little holes inside the wall. I don't see them connected to anywhere, but I'm very curious about them. Let me push my little fingers in to say, no, don't touch. I can tell you it's 220 volts inside. Said, who do you think you are? And there's nothing there. Because by the senses, the limiter says there is nothing there. And I will agree with him or there. But my mind knows a bit more, which I cannot see or sense, only what I put my fingers, and then I will see God, and I will see nothing else from this world. I'll be stripped of reality. So Kabbalah wants to tell us that, yes, you're absolutely right, and it definitely depends on the person's reality, and I agree with you totally. And that's a subjective reality. But the objective reality is that, again, when I say mind, I don't mean logical mind. I didn't say logical mind. I said the entire self has to grasp. And therefore, I want us to learn two little words from the Gemara, from the oral law, and two little words from the Holy Zohar, and see the difference. Anywhere in the Gemara, in the oral Jewish law, it says the beginning of everything, it says ta, which means come, like bo in Hebrew, shma, come and hear. Excuse me, what is hearing? Hearing is one of my five senses, meaning it's in this world. Let's argue about it. Let's make sense of it. Let's make logic of it. These are concepts which run in our everyday life. That's why the oral law is beautiful, but it usually is within the sphere of our five senses. However, big however and a but, when it comes to but beauty, when it comes to the Zohar, Kabbalah, it will never say tashma, come and listen. It will always say tachazi, come and grasp, come and try and be a visionary. That's the beginning introductory two words in any piece of Zohar. Meaning, when you come here, I do not want you to build a vessel for me. That vessel cannot be limited with your senses. It has to be something, when you understand, when you come to this land, you come with humility, and you do not understand anything and leave your senses behind, because the best you can get from this is a branch of understanding, a branch compared to the root. You can get an inkling, you can get inspiration, you can get enlightenment, but you can never grasp the source because the source is stripped of your five senses. Right? For example, I'll give you a practical example, which is a bit shattering and shocking. We discussed this for hours, but this is it. I discussed with this my rabbi when I used to learn. I didn't agree. I fought with him for a long time in the session. We know in this world, if somebody dies away, we say on them Kaddish for 11 months. Then we wait, otherwise they were shown, the evil people, so only 11 months. After 11 months, we wait another month. Then comes the year from the day that they were buried, right? Not the day that they were nifta, that they passed away, the day of burial. And then we have a yortzeit. We go to the cemetery and we have a yortzeit and we light candles and we have a meal. Depends on your tradition. So this rabbi, he is right. He's a Kabbalist for many, many years who learned by Kabbalists. He said, well, in the higher worlds, there is no time. So I come from the world of halakha, of the Jewish law. I say, excuse me, I beg your pardon. Well, when I said Kaddish for my late mom or for my late granny, I said it 11 months. So what do you think happened to her? She knows I said for 11 months and now I'm done. So there is also 11 months over there, 12 months, the day of the year, they come onto the grave. Said, no, in our world, it's within the concept of time. And I can feel it, I can say it with my fast because this is this world. In the higher world, there is no time and space. So I argued with that. Well, what do you mean? This is the Jewish law. I said, listen, you want tie my shoelaces. Listen to what I have to teach you. Okay, I really want to learn. I'm here to learn, not to argue, but I am arguing. So he said, when we say in Hebrew the word chodesh, a month in Hebrew also is some chidush. There's some innovation, some kind of spiraling innovation in the higher world every month that passes by on this earth. It translated in the higher world not into time zones that you understand it with your 5 limited senses. It translated to some kind of innovation, spiraling elevation of the soul as it rises up from this earthly world through its transition and transcendence of getting away from this world after passing by away. After 12 months, which comes a shana, year, it goes through an entire shinui, transformation. For us, we feel it in the senses of time because I'm within the time, so I feel it with my father. Oh, 1 year is the same day in the year, wonderful. Or Hashem Yishmor, God help us. But from their perspective, there is no time. It just meant a whole transformation went by for this particular soul from the day that they passed away. And this is the real truth of the higher world. And I cannot grasp it with my senses. I will never be able, I'll be guilty. I will never be. Because my senses don't understand. What does it mean? No time? And I argued, I remember I argued and I shouted, and there were other people. They looked at this back and forth between rabbi and student. I said, I don't buy this. This is nonsense. I said, listen to me, my boy, my friend. I said, no. Till I tied his shoelaces and listened humbly to what he has to say, because I was unable to grasp and transform and myself from the senses perception and grasping to the mind perception, which is going beyond and understanding something which is beyond. And even though it's the same time, it's the same time. It's seemingly for me the same time, but they don't have time and space. So what does it mean in their world? I have to go to a higher realm of a reality which is stripped of all this in order to grasp it. And this is what I gave you before, was just an introduction to what happens in the higher worlds. It's all a translation to our worlds of how does it look. The moon that you're going to see tonight at 12:15, the lunar eclipse, it's just a translation. Says whoever sees once a month the moon, Kiddush Levana, right, at the beginning of the month, of the 3 days at least, is like seeing the Shekhinah. What does it mean? So in the higher world, there's some kind of a relation of godliness and divineness when the moon is beginning to see. From our perspective, I can't see the divine. I can see the divine. It says in the Torah, if you try to see the divine, you will die. You will burn out because you don't have a vessel to hold it. I'm too small. I don't have any capacity to try and hold the infinite. I will burn out. I will burst. But when I see the moon, I understand with my mind's eye that behind the moon there is an actual energy and divineness and the soul of the Shekhinah, of the holy presence of God, that is revealing himself through that physical revelation of the moon. So we're living all the time in a dual reality. God wants us, as Shili correctly, wisely said, no, seriously, we can only grasp the physical, but with our mind's eye, we can try and start to comprehend what does it mean? What does it mean in the higher world? What does Kabbalistic mean? Yeah, tonight I can see a red moon. A red moon is a red moon. No, says the Kabbalah. It's just a moon. The red, oh, this means conflicts, wars. It doesn't. It just means a red moon. No, it doesn't. We have a deeper understanding. Can I show it to somebody physically? No. Can I sense it physically? No. Can I understand with my mind's eye? Yes, I can. Do I know it to be true? Yes, I do, because we have 4,000 years of experience with Jewish tradition that whenever it happened, it quacks like a duck, walks like it's a duck. We know that it's true. But for other people who don't, I'm a fraud or a scare, or I'm just a meshuggah. I don't know what I'm speaking about because I can grasp it, I can see it. The same applies to faith. Some people will understand that faith is above knowledge. Above knowledge, I don't have my senses to help me there. I don't know why it happened. I don't know why this loss. I don't know why this person died. I can't understand it. So I had to go to the higher level of faith, which is above my, I don't know why the Holocaust happened. I have to go to a higher level of my faith above my physical understanding. But if a person says faith is equal to results, only what I grasp to be true here is true, and otherwise this is not faith. This is not faith. This is not becoming. That's devoid completely of faith, because faith, by definition, has to go to a higher level in our senses. Your response, my friends?
Well, this is super helpful because I actually understood what you said. I should say my soul understands what you said.
I hope I understood myself what I said.
Yeah, well, your soul does. And so that's because sometimes I find myself in situations where I know I don't completely grasp it intellectually, but my soul is really happy and excited about it. Right. So I think, okay, I'm going to just sit here and listen because it's got to be good and healthy. And so the notion that we can be profiting and contributing,
yes,
receiving and giving, even right. when we don't know that we're doing those things. That is completely, I love saying this time of year, but it means we've broken away from Hellenistic thinking.
Yes.
It does.
Yes,
and
it does.
That thing right there are our ancestors that went to war and fought for over 10 years and everything was awful. Here we are all this time later, still fighting it. And when we can stand back and go, some part of my soul understands this, I'm going to accept it and I'm going to impart it the best I can.
Right. And by the way, I want to give you an inkling that in many places, especially the book of Genesis, Bereshit, it's being mentioned what I just spoke about in a different dress up. The dress up is as follows. I didn't forget about Shimi, just a second. As it says about Rachel, about Rebecca, it says about Sarah, it says, Yefat Toar ve'Yefat Mare. Yefat Toar means she had the beautiful shape of her face. And for example, Sarah, she had a different name, Iska, which means everybody was shocked and stunned. She is gorgeous, she is stunning. That's what people saw. But when you spoke to Abraham, her husband, not that he got used to it, he never got used to it. 75, when he's 75 and she is 65, says, "Now I know that you are beautiful." It never interested him. He was such a spiritual person. He saw the real beauty of his soul. And that lasts even when we're very, very old. And I will share with you, I was once with two buses. I took them to Tzfat. It's so called Rehov Mekazi Street. And at the corner there, I was asking people around how to get, because we're late before Shabbat, to the hotel. And I saw a couple, I will never forget them, as long as I live. They were maybe 95 plus. This couple, they really looked like Auschwitz survivors. They were so thin, they were so frail, there were skeletons walking in the street. They were in love, they were holding hand in hand, an old couple in a buying shop, spiritual, because they had no tangibility in this physical world, just enjoying each other before Shabbos comes in. The presence, the friendship, the love, because nothing physical was there. It was just too spiritual. It was so beautiful. That's something that's an envy, you know, to come to that, to go through all of life's trials and tribulations and experiences, and stay this way in togetherness, and see each other in a spiritual way, and love each other, and even say you are beautiful physically because I love your soul. That's what the Torah says, Yefato bat Yefat Mare, inner beauty. So think about what the TV, the Instagram, the Facebook, all the media, different media today is looking at. Who can see that? Who is looking for that? Nobody. Nobody out there. Nobody out there. People that get older, it's a lost cause. They're not beautiful anymore. Only the young and the beautiful and the pretty. That's the way this world works. And they're losing out completely on the real world of how rich, how beautiful is the soul. And sometimes you can find a very beautiful, physically beautiful man or woman, but they are so ugly. They're so far away from any, not ugly because they're not spiritual, ugly when it comes to the attributes or the mannerism or the way they bring themselves about. It can be nasty and blunt and bold and daring and fraudulent and lying. And so this spoils everything. But in the world's eyes, they'll still be very beautiful because they have it. From a spiritual perspective, they don't have anything. When they come to the real world, they own nothing. In this world, money, power, beauty, they own everything. From which perspective do you see? As Shili wisely said, both are true. But which one lasts? Which one is the real, the highest self-worth? Anyone, Shili, you want to, Shili-san, say something about that.
Sorry, I'm driving, so
that's okay.
Yeah.
That was really beautiful and timely.
Yes, it is timely, right on time.
Lovely gift for me right at this moment. I mean, it is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put it up in the YouTube. So if anyone that wants it, or if you want me to send it to you, I'll be able to send it to you. If you want to re-listen to it, it's okay. Whoever comes gains. The whole point of it is not to take away. I'm not a strict person, not to take away from people, but to draw them out, to flesh them out, to come to be here. Because
yes,
just listening to this, you know, I can do that as well. And I'm sure that I'm guilty of that in the past. Of just, okay, I will listen to the recording whenever I can. And so I juggle my time. But the experience of having few people and more people together and sharing our thoughts and brainstorming and brain hearting together, if you can use this term, brain hearting, I just made it up, that's much more beautiful. That's why I wanted people to come and be here. So it's not being strict, it's being compassionate. Yes. Okay. Shabbat Shalom.
I understand.
Shabbat Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Bye-bye.